Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here, and we have yet another solar shockwave that is headed towards Earth right now at this moment in time. It has hit a probe that is maintained by NASA that's in fact right now hanging out near Venus, very close to the Earth-Sun line, and it registered a significant shockwave that will soon be hitting us. And the culprit is this high-speed stream emitted from this coronal hole. So we have this dark spot on the sun, quite large, close to the equator. The plasma temperature is lower. The magnetic field is open. What that means is you have all these ions flow out of this high-speed stream, mostly hydrogen ions, so just protons, but also alpha particles like helium and even some heavier ions, and they supercharge the solar wind. We just had a solar wind shockwave hit us. That was back on the 8th and the 9th, and that gave us a G2 geomagnetic storm. And we've been seeing tons of volatility and chaos in general here on Earth. Like, for example, right after that geomagnetic storm, we had a huge market tank. We already were seeing increasing volatility in the markets. I've been talking about that on some of my live streams, basically telling people to prepare for something like that before people thought that was going to happen. And well, here we are. The point of me mentioning this is that these sort of solar energies, they interact with the Earth, they enter into the system, and they charge the system. So not only can you see, for example, there to be like more earthquakes after loading of energy from coronal holes. We just had a magnitude 6.5 right under an active volcano in the Arctic Ocean, Van Mayen Island. But you can also see volcanic activity. I mean, we have like the Fuego, I think it's Fuego volcano in Guatemala just erupting like crazy last night. In general, there's just more energy in the system, and that gets everything supercharged. That includes us. That includes our collective consciousness and our interactions with each other. People are getting really feisty. A lot of people are snapping at each other. They're not harmonized and in balance, and they don't know how to control themselves. So we're seeing some people lash out, really angry, a lot of ego stuff, right? A lot of ego-driven things that are occurring. And we have two planetary retrogrades. We have Venus retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde on the 15th. We have on the 14th, right as this new solar wind shockwave will basically be finished up, sweeping by that time, we have a blood moon eclipse. 2 days before that, we have a Saturn Cazimi. Then we have a whole bunch of other Cazimis. And like I said, March Madness. So things are crazy. They're going to continue to probably get crazier. I mean, I don't know, but that's just what all these different factors are indicating. We hope that things work out for the best, and I believe they will. You have to have faith. God demands faith. So here we are. We're in this wild, volatile, chaotic period, and not only did we have one solar wind shockwave, which is from this coronal hole, now we have this other one here set to sweep by very soon. And we know that's going to be the case because we can look at our data from the Solar Orbiter probe. Here it is. This is the location for today. It just passed close to Venus. It's 0.51 astronomical units upstream. So it's basically right in between the sun and the Earth, halfway. And you'll notice the degree difference is only 5 degrees. So it's effectively right in front of the Earth. And so what it's picking up is what's going to hit us, basically. But it's giving us like a 2-day heads up. And so here we see the actual magnetic field data. We're looking at the total magnetic field here. And so it's down here around 15 or so. That's already enhanced. Normal is about 5. It does strengthen a little bit as you get closer to the sun, but not significantly. So it's already enhanced because of these high-speed streams and other things. Look at that shock right there, jumping it actually up to 35, but really about 30 nanotesla. Again, normal is 5, so this is a 6x increase. And then we see this increase there kind of continuous, going back to about 30 before it finally drops off. That already hit the Solar Orbiter probe. That's already happened, right? So we look here at the dates. It's a little difficult for me to see, but this is the 9th of March. That is noon, universal time. Here's the 10th. There's noon. And we're already missing, you know, they don't update this data like every 5 minutes. But that is going to be hitting us very, very soon. And so we had this first solar wind shockwave, triggered a G2 geomagnetic storm. Let's actually give that a look. We can see the type of geomagnetic volatility that triggered. Here we have our different indices of geomagnetic activity. We have our HB30 index. This is a 30-minute look, so it's a higher resolution. Here's that G2 storm. But let's go down to our HB60 index, which is right here. We see that the highest value for 1 hour is a 6.33. That's a G2 storm. That's quite a lot of magnetic flux on the planet. And it's the magnetic field that we connect to very intimately across different scales, at the atomic scale, at the molecular scale, at the cellular scale. Our heart field, the magnetic field of our heart, connects to the magnetic field. For example, when there's strong geomagnetic activity, there's a greater incidence of cardiovascular problems, heart attacks, things of that nature, because it sends the regular coherent rhythms of our heart, which keep us alive, into greater chaos. And if you're older, if you have cardiovascular problems, you have poor heart rate variability, then you're more susceptible to these sort of changes. Or if you're just really stressed out. But then there's other effects too, all throughout the body. But if we go down to our KP index, then we can see this storm on a 3-hour measure. We see there that value, 5.667. That was that first solar wind shockwave. Now we've had much bigger before, okay? So it's not like this is the end of the world or anything, but we've had quiet conditions. We see that going all the way back to the beginning of March. We've had quiet conditions. This came in, but here's the thing. It's not just this. We have so many other things that are building up at this moment in time. I talked about this on my video talking about March Madness. It's when you have a lot of different energetic factors converging together that things get really wild, or you have one or two things that are really big and powerful. What's happening in March is a whole bunch of different things combining together. So the fact that we had a G1, even a G2 storm for a little bit, stacked on top of this other stuff that's building up is quite notable. So let us look at some of these other things that are building up. We can look at our first thing that we know is going to happen. When this solar wind shockwave is going to come in next, right? When this is going to hit the Earth is a little bit ambiguous, right? Probably about within 48 hours or so. But the exact time is difficult to say because I don't know the velocity here. If we had the velocity, we could calculate it, but we kind of don't. But if we go here, we know the exact time that this is going to happen. This is Saturn Cazimi. So here is the planet Saturn, and you have the sun in this view moving forward through the sky. But in fact, it's the Earth that's rotating like this. And so it's going to pass over Saturn. Saturn's on the other side of the sun. So we see Saturn there approaching its Cazimi when it is conjunct the sun. And this is just in general, a Cazimi is a pretty energetic, powerful moment. There's a whole bunch of stuff I could go into archetypally as it relates to a Saturn Cazimi. But just in general, when you have a Cazimi, it's a powerful moment. And with Saturn, that gas giant out at 10 astronomical units, the second largest planet in the solar system, this is significant. This is talking in referencing power structures and financial markets. It's very much connected to Saturn, and leaders and halts and blocks and limitations and boundaries, and all that is getting reworked with this Cazimi. Now, if we go forward, that is on the 12th, so we're nearly there. But if we go forward a little bit, we have 4 Cazimis in March. That's just the first one. We have one on the 12th, and then we have this blood moon lunar eclipse. We'll talk about that next. But after that eclipse, we have the Neptune Cazimi, and then we have March equinox on the 21st, and then we have Venus Cazimi on the 23rd, Mercury Cazimi on the 24th, and in fact, we have this Saturn Cazimi on the 12th, which is right around the time this solar wind shockwave will probably hit, or maybe slightly before. Then we have that blood moon total lunar eclipse. Then the day afterwards, we have Mercury go retrograde. So then that Mercury retrograde starts, and that's when it then will Cazimi on the 24th because it'll sweep by. So we have a bunch of stuff happening, right? I've talked about this in the March Madness video, but I wanted to provide you an update because if you look at what's been happening with the market, that's probably not going to end anytime soon. I think we're going to have more volatility, ups, downs, ups, downs. I mean, I can just go here to our heat map. This is for cryptocurrencies. I mean, just across the board, not good, really not good. Some of them here, like for example, Dogecoin, down like 10%, but it was down more than that earlier. If we go to our S&P heat map, I mean, just brutality, madness. It was pretty brutal today. So this is how some of these energies can manifest. That's all I'm saying, especially when you have two retrogrades in the mix. Mercury retrograde soon. We're going to have these sort of trade blocks and limitations because Mercury is the ruler of trade and commerce and communication. Venus retrograde is connected to our relationships and our finances and things of this nature. So this makes sense with the Venus retrograde. Then you're going to have Mercury added into the mix. They are retrograding together through the night sky. And then eventually they'll turn around. So it's when they start to turn around that I expect this stuff to get better. This is around mid-April. We also see, for example, Europe, and we see China having huge stimulus packages. That money will start flooding into the system. It already is, but it takes some time to work into these sort of more risky assets. That will click in around April. And then also, the federal government is going to have to do some sort of cut to the rates because of this. They won't let that go. So just a little bit of, you can use the astrology and some of these other things to get a sense of where things are going. Also, just to point it out while I'm here, I did a live stream with Saint Wolf Vision on YouTube, also on Twitter X. And we asked the question of, okay, when is there going to be a top to the financial market? Like, can you give us some idea of when that's going to occur? And the answer that we got was, we used the I Ching. We threw the coins, we got our hexagram. The answer that we got was peace. Peace and then truth. So there's some indication, at least based off of the divination that we did together on this live stream on his channel. You can go to his channel to check it out. It's like a 3-hour long live stream. It's really good. We go way deep into it. When there's peace is when that top cycle may occur, according to the divination. So keep that in mind, because there's talks right now about getting peace in Ukraine and all these other places around the world. So it is a relevant subject. And the I Ching I did before this, which I mentioned, was I was like, what are the markets going to do? And it gave me conflict, and then it gave me abysmal. And conflict is what we're in right now. Abysmal is where we will exit, and that's when people have lost all hope. And it says with the abysmal hexagram, if you have true intentions in your heart, then you'll see supreme success. So that's when you would want to perhaps bet on a turnaround. Not financial advice. This is probably too woo-woo for some people, but it's been very, very good for me. So yeah, things have been wild, and it's not just because of solar wind shockwaves. It's because of all the other factors at play. We have those Cazimis, but let us talk about our total lunar eclipse, because that's coming up on the 14th. So here we have a graphic showing this total lunar eclipse, and this will be viewable for those on the West Coast on the 13th at night. So basically that night on the 13th, the sun will set, the moon will rise, and around 11:30 or so p.m. for the West Coast, the moon will turn blood red, and it'll stay blood red for about 2 hours. Now, if you're on the East Coast, that's going to happen closer to zenith. So it's going to be like 1:30 a.m. or so. Here we have the universal time, and only the very edge, like for example, people in far Western Europe, they'll only see a little bit of this right before sunrise because they're more east. But we have this occurring, and this is typically seen as a fairly ominous thing. You have a full moon in its grandeur and its splendor, then all of a sudden it gets cast into shadow and turns a blood red color for 2 hours, right? This isn't an eclipse where it's 2 minutes. You could actually miss it if you're inside, you're on the toilet or something, right? No, this is for 2 hours. So a lot of people saw them, and it has a very wide range of viewing, whereas a solar eclipse is a very narrow path. So ancient peoples, a lot of them saw these sort of total lunar eclipses in their lifetime. Many of you probably have as well. I know I have. It's very interesting. This is a long thing though. This is a very much a big energy event, and it's actually just the first eclipse. So we can go and check out the fact that we actually have 2 eclipses. So it's not just 1 eclipse, it's 2 eclipses, because we will get a lunar eclipse and then a solar eclipse this time. Sometimes it's the opposite. It depends on basically where the moon is. The moon is aligned with the ecliptic plane of the sun and the earth. And so it passes directly in front of either the sun, like with this partial solar eclipse that we'll have on the 29th, or it'll pass directly into Earth's shadow created by the sun, which is why it turns a blood red color. Those red wavelengths of light refract through, and then they hit the moon and they illuminate it. So we have both of these coming up, the 14th, the 29th, and we have equinox right in the middle, which is already a very energetic time. We have the Saturn Cazimi on the 12th. We have the Neptune Cazimi on the 20th. We have the Venus Cazimi on the 23rd. We have Mercury Cazimi on the 24th. We have just in general a lot of stuff. And during equinox, you have stronger geomagnetic activity from solar activity. So that's why these solar wind shock waves, at least this first one, hit us and gave us a G2 storm, right? It could get even stronger. This one that we got from Solar Orbiter here, this is looking pretty significant. The field strength going up to 30, even that spike to 35, that's a big storm. Depending on how it hits the Earth, that could be a big storm. And this isn't like some other times I've used this data. Solar Orbiter is kind of really at this angle and it's harder to gauge whether it is going to hit us or not. This is pretty, I mean, it's not 100% guarantee, but it's directly in front of the Earth, 50% of the way towards the sun. So it is an excellent forward probe. And that gives us about a 48-hour heads up, I would say. If just rough estimate, about 48 hours. So this was on the 9th that it came in. We could actually be seeing this come in just hours, because it's now the 11th universal time and it's early morning on the 11th universal time. So this could be rolling in at any moment now. We don't know. It could be a little bit delayed. You know, also I fully admit that, you know, heliophysics is very complicated and there's a lot of stuff that happens here that we don't know and a lot more that we don't know. And so, you know, I leave room open that this could miss us, but this is looking like it's going to hit. That's my intuition. We've had one hit, now we have the second one coming in, and it's because of this coronal hole that we have on the sun right here. This one already swept by. Now the dynamic with this one is that it created this really compact co-rotating interaction region, and that really gave the Earth a bit of a wallop. I don't think this one's going to be as significant in that regard because it's a little smaller, but again, we saw that magnetic field bump was pretty strong with this one. And look, there's even a third coronal hole opening up behind this second one. So we may get a 1-2 triple punch. That's possible. This other one that's opening up, we'll see that at the end. Let me actually zoom forward and pause it for you all. This one is further south of the equator, so it's going to be less geo-effective. Maybe perhaps it doesn't even really sweep by us, but it is opening up. So there is a potential of there even being a third solar wind shock wave after this occurs. And when you have the moon in the magnetotail, which is what the full moon is, it's in Earth's magnetic field when it's full for this full moon total lunar blood moon eclipse, right? That also creates greater geomagnetic volatility because it's interacting with the plastosphere to a greater degree. If it's outside the magnetosphere, it's not really interacting with it. And so we see stronger geomagnetic disturbances during full moons. There's good data on that. And so we have that also on the 14th. It'll enter into that magnetotail around tomorrow, really. It may even be in the magnetotail already, just the edge of it. It'll really be firmly centered in that on the 14th. So a lot happening. Hello, I see you all in the chat. I hope you've been enjoying the live stream. So yeah, that's kind of what's on my mind, what I wanted to discuss. Just a lot happening, and I know it can be challenging for people, especially if it's causing any sort of health symptoms. I know personally, just over the past, to be fully frank, you know, I'm not immune to this stuff. I've been having some gut health problems for the past, well, for a little bit longer than the past few weeks, but it really seems to have kind of ramped up since that G2 storm, though I'm feeling fine now. In general, I'm feeling fine, but you know, these sort of things can manifest like that. And so it's important to have certain health and wellness practices in place. For example, earthing and grounding. As many of you know, I sell earthing and grounding shoes on the website. These are the Explorer boots. They're the best earthing shoe. bar none in the world. Barefoot is best. If you go outside, walk on the beach, walk on the lawn, even concrete is conductive, especially more so if you add some water to it. That helps ground you. But if you want to be grounded more often, then I have things like the Explorer boots, wildfreeorganic.com/store. You'll see it right on the homepage. But then there's other things that you can do to keep your body calm and relaxed and grounded. Chamomile tea is excellent. Things like, I've talked about this before, things like potatoes are very grounding. They're super rich in nutrients, but they're not, you want to stay away from the very processed carbs, sugars, grains. So just eating whole natural foods is really important. Drink clean spring water. That's really key. Make sure you sleep at a good time. Don't overuse your phone. Turn the Wi-Fi router off at night. We're having more of this electromagnetic energy already come in. You don't need to blast yourself with more. And then if you're doing all those sort of things, then you may find additional benefit by incorporating, for example, herbal teas. I have spirituality. It's in stock. Chamomile, purple lotus flower, mugwort, passion flower. This is the best for helping you rest, relax, also sleep. We have an opportunity with these sort of energies coming in from the sun to actually unlock different parts of our consciousness as well, because there's more kind of activity, especially when we're sleeping. It can enhance dreams, and so if you want something to enhance your dreams, and they can be very synchronistic, they can tell you a lot, they can change your life. I had a dream a couple nights ago that really is sitting with me. Spirituality helps to potentiate all that really amazing stuff. If you don't want something perhaps as strong, but you still want to rest and relax, Tranquility is back in stock. I just mixed up a new batch. That's chamomile, dandelion root, lemongrass, calendula flower, and lavender flower. Very calm and relaxing. Excellent for your gut. Actually, I'll make a cup of this tonight for myself. This was made first and foremost for gut health. And that's one of the first things that can get thrown awry because of solar activity and these sort of geophysical energies, or just in general, this energy convergence. And then also herb coffee. I just mixed up a new batch. Now it contains lion's mane, but herb coffee is great because coffee already is pretty stressful, a lot of cortisol. That only contains 50%. So you can still have your coffee, but not have as much of a cortisol spike from herb coffee. Really good stuff. I recommend you do all these things. I'm a little spoiled because I make this stuff, so I get to use it whenever I want. And I have to say, just as someone who developed it because I noticed that I wanted to have these sort of things on hand for myself, and I wanted to be able to provide that to people, it's been tremendously useful. So that's why I mentioned it. That's why I have this stuff. That's why I have the website. It's more just a way for me to give back to everybody. Because I went through the process of learning about these herbs, formulating them, testing them, trying them, and you guys have loved that. Remember, March Madness for 5% off all month. That's the code. So yeah, just a lot happening right now. We'll take a couple questions. So if you have a question, type @Stefan Burns, and then we'll get into it. But beyond that, that's the update for today. Just wanted to, I saw that solar wind shockwave hit the solar orbiter. I do have one more video to show you, in fact. Let me pull that up. We have kind of some new sunspots rotating in as well. So we had a little bit of deficit of sunspots. That seems to start to be about to change. 4012 here used to be quite a bit larger, didn't really do much. This is going from the 8th to the 10th. We see it fading out. We see 4016 fading out, but we see 4018 come in, 4019, 4020, and 4021. We see 4019 growing. So if it continues that rate of growth, eventually when it's Earth direct, it could be quite large. That's just a small probability, but I mean, look at that growth right there. So it is going to be fairly close to the equator and also Earth center direct in about 2.5 days. So we'll have to watch that growth. Warrior Widow's asking, where's the best place in San Diego to watch? I'm guessing you're referring to the total lunar eclipse. Well, it's going to be basically fairly early on, right? It's going to be like 10:30 or so that it's going to occlude. So it's going to rise as a full moon right as the sun sets on the 13th. And then once it's fairly up, it's going to then turn that blood red color. So the biggest thing is just make sure you don't have any clouds. If there's no weather, then you'll be fine because it'll be high enough on the horizon for effectively everyone. Only people in New Zealand or in like Hawaii are going to see it right as it's rising, which is, you know, close to the horizon. But for everyone else, especially East Coast, it's going to be right up above and ahead. So you just have to make sure you have no weather, hopefully, right? And if you really want to see it better, you can get binoculars, but there's nothing special needed for a total lunar eclipse. You just look at it and you'll see the blood red color, and it lasts about 2 hours. So it's pretty cool. Another question is, well, some of these aren't questions. What's the meaning of the solar flare index dropping out to A? Well, there are different categories for solar flares. I know what you're talking about. You're referencing, we're getting some data dropouts. Let me show you really quick. I referenced this in a prior video. That's why I spent some time on that subject, but I knew it would continue to get brought up. For example, we see some data dropouts, like here, right there, right? Also there, here. It's happening in the morning roughly. And basically what's happening is that these are geostationary satellites. They orbit around the Earth. And because right now we're near equinox, they are lining up with the Earth-Sun plane both once in the Earth, in the sun forward direction, and then also they get occluded by the Earth. And when they're blocked by the Earth and the sun is over here, Earth is there, and here's the satellite, they don't receive any of this X-ray flux, so the signal drops out. That's what that is. It's nothing to worry about. It's just a normal effect from the equinox season. And we have some more questions. One from Julie says, is it okay to drink spirituality every night? Did you say it can be hard on the kidneys? Okay, so one of the ingredients, purple lotus flower, makes up 25% of this. It does contain some alkaloids, which can stress the kidneys, but it doesn't contain so much of them that you should be concerned unless you have maybe pre-existing kidney issues. And even then, when you use water to extract, you don't get that many of them. So you get just the right amount to, you know, help you rest and relax, but for example, if you were to smoke it or dry vaporize it, then you get a lot more of these alkaloids, are a lot more bioavailable, and that's like harder to process. So it's also not the type that really can send you your head spinning. That's blue lotus flower. This is purple lotus flower. Asian water lily has lower concentration. So I wouldn't drink it every night because then the effect will also start to not be as potent and wear off, but you don't have to worry if you're drinking a few times a week. You don't have to worry about that. Maureen is asking to talk about Earth's core deformation, and I can speak on that quickly. Yeah, so there's a lot of unknown as it relates to the core. First off, the inner core, the outer core. Some people think the outer core is a geodynamo, which produces the magnetic field. There's other evidence out there, some other ideas that there's actually a georeactor in the Earth and that helps to produce the magnetic field. I'm leaning in the direction that's actually both. I think we have both processes. But our measurements of the core come from, for example, helium that's coming up from the deep part of the Earth. But more so, our best measurements are seismic. These seismic waves, P waves, S waves, how they interact, their velocity, and their travel times, everything like this. And so we have some ideas as to what type of structures and crystalline structures of, let's say, like the inner core create these sort of travel times that we see with these seismic waves. But we have multiple ideas. We don't have the 100% surefire thing. So one of the ideas is that we have the core spinning, and sometimes it spins faster, and then sometimes it spins a little slower. It doesn't reverse, but it goes through these pulses of acceleration in its spin. So it can be spinning like this and then kind of slow down and then speed up faster again. That could explain some of the dynamics that we see. Another way to explain it is that you actually have melting on one side of the inner core and you have crystallization on the other. This is called anisotropy. And so you have this difference in the kind of like a bulge on one side and it's like being eroded on the other. That could explain it. And then you also have different stages of crystalline structure at different parts of the inner core. For example, the outer part, the perimeter of the inner core could have a different crystalline structure than deeper in. That could explain some of these seismic velocity travel times that we get and things of this nature. So it's really complex. That's why I haven't made a video on it, because it honestly would just go like this over most people. And it's so like kind of nebulous of a topic that it's difficult to get into, and to really know what we're even talking about, you have to leave a ton of room open there. I don't want to make any grand proclamations as to the core, right? But it has not reversed direction. That was just a bad piece of misinformation that went out with the different news groups or whatever. You know, they don't know how to read these studies, and so they misinterpret certain things, and that's why that went out there like that. So that's what's happening with the core. That's what we think is happening with the core. And Jenny's asking, does an allergy to stevia or ragweed cause gut problems with the herbal teas? For the ones that have chamomile, yeah, I would stay away if you have a ragweed allergy. For the other ones that don't contain chamomile, you should be fine. So you can go on the website and check out the different allergy, different ingredient list. And Laura is asking, can I touch on the activity of the Schumann resonances in the past few days? It seems pretty unusual. Yeah, it hasn't been unusual. It's just people not knowing, if we're just being honest, it's just people not knowing what they're talking about, which is really an epidemic with the Schumann resonances. But, you know, we're all at different stages of learning. So, we've all been at different places, and we can all have different opinions and different understandings and perspectives, and I think that's beautiful. But people are mainly wondering what this is. This is a blackout. This is when this, you know, I have to remember, we're measuring the background vertical electric field, and we're looking at these Schumann resonances there. And they're really interesting because they overlap with our biology, our brain waves, our heart rhythms, our consciousness, right? There's so much to them. They are always pulsating in the background, and people go to this website, which is the Space Observing System, and they measure these in Tomsk, Russia. And this, for some reason, is the most popular site that people check. And so sometimes their station takes the data offline because they need to repair the equipment or something. So we get this just drop in the data because they're not collecting any data. But the Schumann resonances don't just stop. They're continuously being produced. And so we have other places that we can go, for example, to look at them in different locations around the globe. They're a global energetic phenomenon. And so, for example, we have Cumiana, Italy. And here we can see the Schumann resonances, all these lines, those are the Schumann resonances. We have this one going from 0 to 105 hertz, so we have a broader frequency range to look at. And when you have atmospheric activity, you'll see these spikes as well. So sometimes you see these spikes, and for example, that's another thing people misinterpret. They'll think that this is some crazy ascension blast off, 20,000 people went up to, you know, I don't know, the 12th dimension. No, this is a thunderstorm that passed directly over that observation station, causing the vertical electric field to get really strong, super enhanced, because of the very powerful electric potentials in the thunderstorm cell. And that caused then this data to all of a sudden get super intensified. So that's what we're seeing there. And you'll notice that there's no blackout for that time period for the SOS station. So yeah, I have plenty of videos on the Schumann resonances. You can watch my channel if you really want to learn more about it. But nothing unusual. Everything is normal there. Someone asked, what was my dream? And just the question, you know, I can just quickly touch on it. It was basically just a dream of inspiration. It was just a little bit of a nod towards the power of inspiration, and how I woke up from the dream inspired, and how we can, like right now, we have so many tools at our disposal. There's so much information on the internet that anyone can ask any question that they want and start to develop an answer to it. And so we have all these building blocks, for example, like Legos. And I think what I would like to see more people doing is to build their own little Lego structure and take all these building blocks and just like, if you have a curiosity to explore it, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. All the information that you ever could want is out there. It doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes along the way. And, you know, I've definitely done that. But if you continue at it and there's genuine interest and intention there, then you'll be successful. And so, I mean, it's a very simple example would be like, this is one that just came to me in the dream, but it was just one of a list of thousands, for example. It was like, you could type a question in of like, how do coronal holes on the sun influence CO2 levels on Earth? these are two things that no one's put a connection between them. And perhaps there really isn't a connection between them. But that doesn't mean you can't ask the question. I think we should start asking more questions and not immediately shut down the question because we think we know the answer, or because it's just because no one's asked it doesn't mean that we should ask it, right? I think we should ask all these questions and explore them as we want. And I think that's very inspiring because that's going to take us to some beautiful, amazing places. We're going to learn so much in the process, and anyone can do it. Anyone has the tools to empower themselves now, especially with AI. You can give a prompt to, for example, an AI saying, how do coronal holes and CO2, how are they connected? And it will try to give you a response. It may be totally inaccurate, but it's a starting place. So I think we're going to see this age of inspiration, especially with Neptune moving into Aries for 14 years. Aries is all about pioneering and going forward, and there's going to be some, you could say, negative drawbacks to it. Like there's probably going to be more conflict in the world, right? And there's going to be the lower expression, a lot more people showing their egotistical nature. But the higher expression, I think, is perfectly summed up with the word inspiration. It has the word spirit in it, inspiration. So that was a dream. And it really left an impression on me because I woke up from that dream inspired, and it was such an amazing feeling. The feeling was incredible, and there was no baggage attached to it. There wasn't like I woke up inspired, but then there was like this little component of shame or something, right, that tainted it. It was just pure, amazing, awesome. And so I want to inspire more people. I know I've already inspired a lot of people, but I want to inspire more people, and I hope they inspire others. And as we go 14 years with Neptune and Aries, I think it's going to be incredible what happens by the end. And I think we're entering into an age of inspiration. That was my dream. I'm really excited to see how that unfolds. I have a lot more to deliver to all of you. So that we'll wrap up the questions there. And that is it. So thank you all so much for joining in on today's live stream. Let us do just a very quick, like 2-3 minute sound healing equalization, and then we'll sign off. So let us go. Recommend you take some nice, deep, regular breathing, even just for a couple minutes, deep belly breaths. What is your inspiration? How can you inspire others? What inspires you? When there's chaos in the world, it's time to focus higher. Caught up in the hype. That's a thing. Let's get caught up in the truth, though. How can we help people, ourselves, the earth, the cosmos? We are not just receivers of cosmic energy. We are transmitters too. We influence our little slice of the cosmos. How are we making it a better place? Conflict is not the way to do that. Collaboration is the answer. Slow down. That's it for the live stream, everyone. Wishing you all well, sending you lots of love and light. And please take care of yourselves over the next few days, over the next few weeks, really. We will get through this. There's a lot of opportunity in chaos. Remember that? And yeah, just send you lots of support and healing, and I know it'll all work out. Maintain the faith.